school year started to the next few months showing progress in both reading and writing skills. If it seems to be extremely slow or not developing at all, then that is really a time to meet with the child's teacher. I'm on campus 3 days a week, and I'm always happy to talk to parents if you have individual concerns about your child. So parents really are often very helpful in telling us things like, I try to get my child to read at home and he or she never will do that. That's often a sign of reading being very difficult. There are many young children that don't like to write. And again, we look for them as they gain skills to be more and more willing to write. But if you have a fourth or fifth grader that is still showing kind of a painful response to any writing assignment, then that's an indication to us that there may be something more that we have to do as educators. So again, please feel free to talk to your teachers about these concerns, and I am available and really like consulting with parents about those concerns. One other thought is, as much as you can reinforce reading at home, and to a lesser extent writing as well, but if the child has a grandparent perhaps out of town or an older sibling, they could do things like write simple letters and receive letters from the relative or out-of-state friend. That's a very motivating thing for kids. You could establish perhaps a pen pal. If you have a sibling yourself who lives out of town, perhaps he or she will set up a correspondence if they have cousins. You know, it's a very nice way to get kids to start reading and writing on their own. And something that we tend to forget as our kids get older and begin to read themselves is that they still like to be read to. So even 9, 10, 11-year-old kids and teenagers, I've seen as well, like to enjoy literature with a parent. So keep up the process of reading to kids in the evening, discuss what they're reading. We usually suggest reading books that are a little bit too hard for them to read alone so that they can hear more than they can read. And that's a really good way of stimulating your child to become a reader at home.
So again, if you have any questions or even comments as we're speaking, feel free to type us a question and we can read it on our screen here. So the next question came from the parent, I think of a 7-year-old who's in first grade, who was wondering that sometimes their child, when he gets really angry, he yells, he stomps, he may even spit. They're wondering how to create consequences that are meaningful for his inappropriate behavior, but also showing him compassion. So one recommendation I have is to explore what is it that precipitates his negative reactions. What is going on right before this young boy is having this? What is going on before this young boy is having his reactions? Do these reactions happen when he's hungry, for example, or not able to get what he wants, or if he has to go to bed and does not want to go to bed? Knowing his triggers is very, very valuable information, because then you can plan ahead. So, for example, if he's yelling and stomping when he does not get his way, you can ask yourself why. What is he needing in that moment that he is not getting? Maybe, for example, he wants more independence in his life, but his only way of communicating that to you is by being frustrated when something is thrust upon him. So, for example, you can give him choices. And, lots of parents use choices because frankly, they're very effective. They show respect. They also teach independence. So you can give him a couple of choices. Do you want to play in the park, or do you want to go play together in your bedroom? And this can make him feel much more independent. So when he's doing his stomping and yelling, he's trying to communicate something to you. Even though the way he's doing it may not be very appealing to a parent, because no parent likes those kind of negative reactions. But look beyond the behavior or underneath the behavior and ask yourself, what is it that he's trying to communicate to me? Because part of our job as parent is to be a detective about our kids' behaviors. In terms of consequences, it can be very effective to give him consequences that relate directly to the negative behavior. And these are called logical consequences. So, for example, with anything physical in the home, if he's stomping and yelling and spitting in the home, one consequence that relates directly to his behavior is he may have to help you clean up the home as a way to show respect for the home environment. If he's showing disrespect for the home environment by stomping and yelling and spitting, one consequence can be, we're going to work together to show our love and respect for our home by cleaning up the the bedroom or the kitchen, for example. You can also give him some other options for how to express his anger. For some kids, drawing is very, very helpful. They can draw some kind of picture about how their angry feelings may look. Sometimes they actually like to write a story about it. Some kids need to talk it out. So give him some other options for how to express his anger besides the yelling, the stomping, and the spitting. And I think also kids this age can really begin to get their head around the idea that you always love him or her, you always love your child, but you may not like their behavior. Now, 7 is still quite young, but I think you can start to plant that seed that there's a difference between your love for him, which is unconditional, and sometimes how you don't like his behavior. The next question, which Judy's going to answer, is also from this same parent, about this same age group child.
All right, and I do want to add before I read the second part of the question that, again, we're really encouraging kids at the 7 to 12-year-old range to try to express what it is that they are upset about. And for some kids, they need a little extra time to organize their ideas. So if they can't answer you immediately, it's fine to say, take a few moments and think about what's bothering you, or even draw a picture of what happened. But you're encouraging them to use something else other than a physically angry outburst.
Can I just add 2 more things to that? Is that depending on the situation, one thing that can be very helpful to calm the child down to even begin to use his words is to get down on his level, put your hands gently on his or her shoulders, look them right into the eye, and take a few deep breaths with them, maybe even 3 deep breaths. It takes just a few seconds, but that can begin to calm him or her down just enough where they can begin to use their words. Another technique that people use is you can buy a feelings chart. You can find these online, and oftentimes they come in magnet form, so you can put them on the fridge. So if a kid is so wound up that they can't use their words, they may be able to point to a picture of, let's say a child with an angry face and the word anger underneath it. So you can take your child over to the feelings chart and say, okay, which feeling are you feeling right now? Again, they may not be able to use their words, but sometimes being able to point to an image is a lot easier. Then you can begin to offer compassion and sympathy when you're able to identify which feeling they're feeling after they've pointed to it on the feelings chart.
Good idea. All right, so the second part of the question was, my child seems to be easily defeated and sometimes just lazy. He often says things like, it's too hard, why do I have to do this? I'm the worst at everything. What seemed to me like everyday basic tasks, such as brushing teeth or getting ready for bed, turn into big scenes. And what can we do about this? Well, again, this is not uncommon behavior in children, but it's certainly something that we don't want to reinforce. So we do expect our children to be able to follow directions. We do expect them to help around at home, and we do expect them at different points in their life to work on things that are hard. That's part of school, but it's also part of outside life. To be a good worker in the work environment, you need to be able to listen to what someone's asking you and be able to follow through with that. So you as parents are really helping train your child for long-term life skills. Some of my suggestions would be, take something that your child doesn't particularly like to do and they have some sort of a tantrum about, such as brushing teeth, and begin by helping the child through some of the steps of that thing. Now that's fairly easy, I hope, for a 7 to 12-year-old, but they